now. So if I'm watching this and I'm addicted to the dopamine, what do I do?
If the first step is awareness, and it's just not what do I do, but it's what you don't do. So wisdom is more about what you shouldn't be doing.
This week, I'm joined by my good friend, Mike Radoor. He's had phenomenal success as an entrepreneur. He started early in the tech space in Europe and eventually exited his business at a valuation of circa $300 million.
I decided to study wisdom. So I went very deep in biblical texts. I went into Buddhism and Taoism, and they all said the same at some point. They crossed each other at many subjects.
What I like about Mike's story is that he's honest, he's authentic, he's learned, he's made mistakes, but he's spending his time now helping entrepreneurs and business leaders like you and me find a way to live a better life, answer better questions, leave a deeper impact.
If you want to experience the full force of life, you have to use your human power. And your human power is you resisting the urge of the easy.
This is an episode you don't want to miss. Enjoy it. So Mike, thank you for joining me on Ideas That Matter. You and I were together not so long ago in Abuja in Nigeria. First off, before we get started, how does a guy from the Nordics end up speaking at an entrepreneurship conference in Nigeria?
Because I'm good at what I do. I was
Love it.
I was invited to GEF, the Global Entrepreneurship Festival, last year as a speaker. To be honest, I only had 5 minutes on the stage. But what I said there had an impact on people around me. And, I was networking there and I met a lot of great people. I ended up in the board of GEF as well. And from there on, I was just being more connected.
Speaking of which, by the way, your journey in entrepreneurship is very interesting. My experience with entrepreneurs is typically that either they have suffered a trauma in their early days and they think, I'm just going to go out into the world and do my own thing, and they become entrepreneurs. Or they come from cultures that have like a chip on the shoulders. So like the Koreans are very well known for like having a chip on the shoulder. If you tell a Korean they can't do something, they'll like, watch. And so they tend to go out into the world and become entrepreneurs. Well, the third kind of entrepreneur is the person who's like tons of experience in a particular sector. They've worked in that sector, technology, banking, finance, whatever. And they spot a gap and then they go, this is the thing that I'm going to do. One of the things I find interesting about your story is you're kind of like a blend of all of these, right? But the blend in particular of the first two. So tell me a bit about your business, Miinto. When you guys were starting, why did you start? What did you see? What was the problem you were solving? And what were some of the early challenges you faced?
Yeah, good analysis. Yeah, for definitely one of my drivers is absolutely just to express on that a trauma. It was many entrepreneurs, they want to be acknowledged, they want to feel loved, right? And you know that very well. So yeah, so Miinto started as a high school project where there was in Denmark where I was, there was this competition where you could gather a group of guys, and then you could come up with an idea, you could borrow or get sponsored like $400 from the bank, and from those $400 you had to create something. And at that time, it was just a crazy idea, because at that time I've been visiting larger cities in Denmark, and I felt, wow, they have different T-shirts than we have in my town. Why can't I buy that? And that was literally the idea, to get unique items at that point. We went on with that, and out of, I think it was 900 students that had a company, we became number 2. But it wasn't because of that. Yeah, we didn't win, so we lost the goal, right? But, and of course we lost it to women, young girls. They were more charming than us. So no, so that was just an idea, but we were good at executing. That was what the group were good at. But then I left, and then I went into, I was a bartender, then I became a nightclub manager. I was going to Copenhagen. At that time, my childhood friend Conrad calls me. And he says, Mike, this business idea you had from high school, do you think there's something in it? And without knowing it, to be honest, I didn't have no clue, no market search, no nothing. I said, yes, this is going to be the next big thing. And we jumped into it with both legs. And we went to the bank. We borrowed everything we could. We just took out big loans. And that time the banks were more friendly. And we went on with it. So, of course, within 6 months, we we almost went bankrupt. We have gone wrong direction, spent wrong money on marketing. And that's where I got headhunted we got discovered by 2 angel investors. One of them is actually the founder of Just Eat, which is one of the largest delivery platforms in the world. And what they were catching, hey, you're doing the exact same thing we did with pizzas. I said, yeah, that's what we're doing. So that was, but of course pizzas, and there's a difference between pizzas and having stock because the pizza goes in and goes out.
That's right.
The biggest challenges we had, Vusi, was to actually because we needed two-sided critical masses. We needed people to visit the website, and we needed stock. Mm-hmm. So the only way we could get stock was by convincing one side of the marketplace, which were the shops. And the only way we could convince the consumer was we had enough, products on the shelves. Mm-hmm. So we were having a crazy challenge because, first of all, we didn't have a website. We didn't have anything in the beginning. We just went out with our vision. And it was literally, we leased 2 cars and we drove every single day, 16 hours a day. And we knocked on the doors of these boutique owners. And we thought they would love the idea. To our big realization, they were very fearful towards the internet because the internet was the thief of their business. And they said, we don't want to join the internet because the internet is what's going to be our death. And we were like, yeah, so you should join it in a big community and stand together. So that was the biggest challenge was actually to sign them. The next big challenge was to get pictures of the products that could be selling, because at that time we took pictures with the iPhone, which was a terrible quality camera, and and we couldn't be there and take the pictures of all the shop owners, so we asked them to do it themselves. Then it got even worse because they didn't have time to do it. There was not an interest. So here we are, we're having maybe 5,000 products on the site. The next problem comes. Now we finally managed to get this slow process up on the site, and we have now been doing all the SEO and everything we could to optimize the site and get users on the site. Now the users is starting to get a bad user experience because as soon as they buy a product, the shop just says, no, sorry, we don't have that anymore.
We don't have it oh no.
Right? So what we learned was we had to streamline it. So we started a photo studio and we created a back end. So as soon as one shop, so we gave all the products, we gave them a unique name in our back end, and we connected all the shops. So we figured it doesn't matter if it's shipped from this destination or that destination, as long as the customer gets their product. So we then made a competition out of it. Say, if you don't have it in stock, as soon as you reject this order, it's going to go to your
competitor.
Competitors. And that's where it actually started to take off. They started to take it more serious. They started to use our photo studio. And then when the orders really started to come in after 3 years, we figured that actually they do not have the depth of the stock that is demanded from the online consumer, because the online consumer has, they want to buy something that you don't want to buy when you walk in the shop. So we actually had to connect the brands themselves, and that's where Miinto really took off. So we became also consignment, but we always gave the shops the offer first. And then also we tried to take a position, because we actually became a better strategic purchase partner than anyone in the world, because we had all the numbers for the search traffic on our SEO. We knew that this brand is going to blow up. We know that we need stock on this brand. And we started to be the communicator between the shops and the brands. And then the business just evolved.
So you've covered a lot there, and I want to kind of break it down into segments. Let's arc back a few minutes. You spoke about the difficulty of building marketplace businesses, and notoriously many entrepreneurs let me say it this way. Many entrepreneurs I've seen trying to build marketplace businesses actually underestimate the complexity of it, because to your point, there's things that have got to come together. The buyers will only come on your platform if the sellers are there. The sellers will only come on your platform if the buyers are there. And so you're kind of like caught in this space between. And even if you can get the seller and can get the buyer onto your platform, they will only come back again if you can get the fulfillment right. So if you can get the product that the seller is selling into the hands of the buyer in a time frame that is like a good enough time frame. So when you were doing this, like which year was this? Because it would have been, were consumers sufficiently educated on purchasing online that they were willing to forgive you as you were making mistakes?
Yeah, so yeah, that's right. So we started 2009. So we had a little fortune. That was when, buying online was more for discounted products, etc. Right? So people had fear of buying online. There was a lot of fear involved of buying clothing online. So we actually were lucky in that time because the service and the speed of the service didn't matter but that picked up really fast. It picked up so fast. But in the beginning, it was more like that unique item they couldn't find in their own city. Now they could get it. So they will be willing to wait 7 days, sometimes 2-3 weeks on that. But that picked up really, really quick. We had to deliver faster. We could see that.
Incredible. And what was if you remember in those early days, what was like the biggest challenge you guys as a team faced?
We were definitely facing, so me and my business partner in between, we were facing founder issues because it was two cocks in a cage. And he was, he's an incredible, he's an incredible guy. His tenacity is amazing. He just recently stopped working there and he didn't do an exit. But in the beginning, it was who is leading the pack, because we also grew up together. And where we came from, let's just put it in this way, Vusi, we were not afraid of going into a fight when we were kids.
Sure.
So we were really always very protective to each other, but now suddenly hierarchy was to be established. And to be honest, I couldn't handle that. I just couldn't handle that. And I was a big challenge for him. And he was just trying to hold the line as a CEO, but I didn't feel like he should, at that time in my life, that he should tell me what to do. And that spread into the team. But also the next challenge we had, culture. Culture was very, very, very difficult because we tended to attract men in a startup. It was more risky. They were more risk adverse. And as soon as we had men there for 1.5, 2 years, you can imagine the conversations around the tables were, not adapted for the public, to be honest.
Exactly.
And as soon as we hired our first women or young girls, they left pretty quick. And that's when we realized that, this is way too masculine and we need to corporate it up. We need to have rules. So that was also a challenge to actually attract female talent and to keep them, because the men were boys. That was it.
Here's the truth. If you're running a business in 2025, you're not just selling a product, man. Like, you're actually building relationships. I say to my own team all the time, you don't close sales, you open relationships. And so you need a system that's going to help you manage the relationships. And the key word here is system. Most of the SMEs I see, they don't have the ability to do this. They're tracking leads in notebooks and sticky notes, or WhatsApp chats is my worst, scattered over 5 different platforms, different pieces of software. That's how customer relationships die. And gladly, I'll tell you, that's what your competitors are looking for you to do wrong. See, with the Odoo CRM, you can close this gap. One dashboard, one pipeline, one view of your entire sales process. You can see where every single lead is, how you migrate that lead from lead to client, from client to repeat customer. On the Odoo website, you can have email marketing, you can use social media apps, you can even tell where you're pulling that data from, and it's custom built into one app, one platform. You can track every single conversation. You can keep important notes and details. What about your internal team? Well, it means you can collaborate internally. It means one salesperson can tell the other salesperson what's going on, because you now have a system that's making sure that hot deals don't go cold and cold deals are managed correctly. To add to all of that, here's the beautiful thing. It's all visual. It's simple drag and drop. It's intelligent. Your sales team, whether it's one person or many people, don't need to waste time learning how to function in a complex system. Your customers will feel seen and they'll feel heard. And you can begin to predict your revenue growth because you know what you're doing. So, one of the things I've learned in business is that businesses that know what they're doing win. It's a formula. It's not magic. And this system will allow you to know what you're doing. And the best part of it all, whether you're a corporate or an entrepreneur, you can simply hop onto the Odoo platform and you can actually start using it right now and it'll make sense to you. So, you can start streamlining day-by-day operations. You can lay the first brick on your CRM. You can start building apps to your storefront, integrate to your payment platforms, manage your inventory, and it's ridiculously affordable. That's why I like it. One of the things you'll know about me is I don't endorse things I don't use myself. I really like the Odoo platform. So, I've said enough. Here's what I'd like for you to do. Hit the link below. Just go to their website. Check them out. And see if they can help you build your business with better sense, better logic, less guesswork, and less chaos. Cheers.
What I love about you, that your story is like, it's so layered, right? So I want to talk a bit about that dynamic between you and the founder, your co-founder. So, Mike, I got to tell you, I have this like friend of mine. He and I are like co-invested in the business, but many years ago, he had a business, very successful marketing business that they were running in South Africa. Him and his business partner, and they were also friends. And one of the interesting dynamics they had, and I thought it was interesting, was that to the outside world, it looked like they were running this one business. But actually inside the business, to make sure that they weren't fighting each other, they had carved the business into two halves. And they were each running independent businesses, like with their own teams, own processes, own systems, own everything. And they had like shared services. So finance, HR, etc. Those were shared services. But the actual forces that they were running, the marketing and sales forces, were different. And I was like, that's such an interesting dynamic. And I vividly remember one of them saying, dude, co-founder relationships are notoriously difficult, right? So I suppose the question I'm asking is, you know, you go from being friends and then you're co-founders. Did you guys ever like sit down and have a conversation and go, okay, so who's going to be CEO? Who's going to be COO? Who's going to make the calls? Did you have that discussion, or did it just kind of happen?
Yeah, we did. We did have that discussion, and we did. It's funny, that story you just mentioned. That was kind of what we did. So the conclusion were, because we couldn't figure it out. So he wanted to be the CEO. I wanted it, but I knew in my heart that he was better. He was an auditor, but I couldn't give it to him. You know, I just, because I hated the way he was leading. He was not my type. He was a beast for leading. So what happened is, the two angel investors, they brought us into, you know, a board meeting, and in there I got an ultimatum. They said, Mike, listen, either you quit the business or you take your stuff to Sweden. I was like, what? Because at that time I was single. I was also I'm a sales guy. It was just me, and I was going to start it all from scratch. Right when things started to flow in the Danish market, I was going to go out and make us, you know, repeat that process in Sweden. So I started from scratch. And to be honest, you know, Danish and Swedish, yeah, it is similar, but I didn't understand a word. So that was it. So I was running my business in Sweden, and it worked.
Wow, that's crazy, man. So, all right, so you go through that, and then you get to this event where you're exiting. From experience, but also from observation, exit events are actually very traumatic for entrepreneurs. Like, you know, you read about it in the news. It's like, oh, so-and-so exited and they sold for X amount of dollars. But any entrepreneur will tell you, building a business is like having a baby, right? And you spend all of this time and effort, and you're raising this child, and you care for it, you know, because everything it needs, you've got to provide it. It needs liquidity, it needs customers, it needs culture, it needs marketing. It needs, you know, operational planning and management. And so everything it needs, just like feeding a baby every day, everything it needs, you've got to feed this business. And then one day you're having this exit event. So run me through how you get to the exit of your business. And that's my first question. My second question is, tell the truth. After the exit, did you go through a mild depression?
Yeah, I always tell the truth. So my exit was, I quit before I exited. Reason being, we had our first Series A venture capital injection in 2012 or 13, I believe, and that was a small investment. It was a $6 million investment approximately, and there we took on some seniors. And my job, because I did a good job in Sweden, they said, Mike, do whatever you did in Sweden, do that in 7 new markets. I like, oh. And that time I thought that was cool. I like that. You know, for me, that's cool to travel the world and build my business was a dream of mine. But after 3 years, I was lonely, and I was, I didn't have friends, and small things as just recognizing the lady down in the grocery shop, recognize it was always a new lady sitting there. So I was feeling, I was lost. And then I decided, I told the board, long story short, hey guys, I need to have some roots here. So I was moved to the UK because that was a big market for us. And so there I am, and I'm renting an apartment, and I'm like, here I'm going to stay for the next couple of years, and I'm going to build this business really big. This is going to be the biggest business within the Miinto group. 6 months later, some financial restraints. We had to close that market.
Oh, no.
And here I go again. And then what? I said, but then go to Sweden, Mike. Okay, go to Sweden. It's now a team of 35. It's not efficient. Do your magic, and we'll take it from there. And I said, okay, I like Sweden. So I went to Sweden. And in Sweden, it took me 1 year to move the operation. So I figured out a way to optimize the business. So I got rid of all the dead personnel that wasn't performing, and we were down to 2 people. And we managed to do an entire business run by 35 people of 2 people because I restructured the processes. And then what happened? They said, well, Mike, we're shutting down Sweden. I said, what? We're shutting down Sweden because you have optimized it so well that we have figured out that we can now do this in all the markets. And that was the drop for me. So I quit actually there because I was too worn out. So my exit happened this way. Miinto is running into some, liquidity challenges, and we have an investor who is one of the billionaires in Denmark who wanted to invest. He's the owner of Jack and Jones and he also owns the House of Zalando. That guy is a shark. Like, this guy is a shark. He's a business guy. He's a numbers guy. He doesn't care about Mike Radoor's emotions. He doesn't care about anyone's emotions. He looks at the numbers, which he should do. And I'm getting an offer which is way, 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 way below the valuation. I'm like, hey guys, what do you mean? What do you mean? Yeah. And then here I have, my business partner, Conrad. He's the good cop. And then I have my angel investors. They're the bad cops. And I could see this happening. And I called Conrad, why are you offering me this? This is like 5 times lower our last valuation. Yeah, but so they were trying to get me out so they could discount my shares to him, and that was his demand. And the reason why they could do it was because they also knew that throughout these years in Miinto, both me and Conrad had taken up a loan not to be diluted, and they knew that the loan that I've been taking was running on the last. Yeah, it was due. So they played me out. Which is business, and I, so that's how I exited. So, but I was happy because I understood the business metrics, and I really understood that it's not even sure that they're going to check out of theirs. But even though I was happy, I was at the same time, I felt stabbed in my back. So I was very, I was confused, to be honest.
I would be pissed. I would be pissed.
So this is what my revenge was this. So success is a revenge, right? So I don't like to revenge, but me and Conrad, we had a promise to each other. And I remember when we started the business, we were looking at 2 beautiful Audemars Piguet watches. And we said, when we exit this business, we're going to buy this watch, a partner watch. So I bought a watch, excuse me, my friend, shut the fuck up, my Audemars Piguet watch. And then I was thinking,
Buster Rhymes says, look at my Piguets about that time.
Yeah. And then I was thinking, wow, man, because that was quite expensive. And I was thinking, does Conrad really deserve the same watch? Or should I just?
So what do you do?
But I couldn't. So I bought a watch. It was slightly lower, but it was still expensive. But it was slightly lower. So I had what was it? Audemars Piguet Royal Oak offshore. And at that time, I think it was $50,000 watch, and his watch was a $35,000 watch. So it wasn't like he didn't get anything, but it was lower than mine. So that was. But here's the funny story. The story doesn't end. Listen to this, Vusi. What happens later is this. This is typical me at that time in my life. So I'm in Stockholm. It's going well. I have all this money. I buy my sports car. I buy the watch. I buy everything. And, I go to Denmark in my Porsche to kind of just show Conrad, you see, and I give him the watch. It was pure revenge. Take the watch. And 2 years later, I'm being robbed in the hallway of my home in Stockholm with a big guy that comes in with a big gun. And he literally tells me that, give me your watch or I'll shoot you. And the first thing I noticed the gun is not as cold as a gun could have been. So I'm like, maybe this is a fake gun. But I don't take any chances. I give the guy my watch, and right before he runs out the door, I asked him, brother, can you give me a half an hour? I need to call the insurance and upgrade.
And did he agree?
No, he looked at me like I was crazy and he went away. Yeah. So that was and Conrad still has his watch. Touché.
Well, wait. Did you ever find the robber who stole your watch?
No, I didn't.
I'm sorry, man. There's a royal oak out there. Oh, that's terrible news, bro.
Yeah, so that's how the exit went down. And then you asked me if I had a depression. Yeah, I had a huge identity crisis because I started to doubt myself so tremendously much because now I was alone, and I started to think, was I lucky? Can I actually do something? Am I actually skilled? Shit, man, I need to prove myself one more time. God, wow, do I really have to go through this again? And it was a terrible period.
I think a lot of, there's for people who buy a product, sometimes they have this thing called buyer's remorse. I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, there's definitely an exit remorse. And to your point, and I love the way you said it, right, is a lot of us, the truth of it is that our businesses form a part of our identity. Like, they say your name and then they say the company that you've done or founded or whatever the case might be. And to get into a stage in your life where suddenly that association is just no longer attached to your person, it's a very traumatic thing, right? And I think that actually a lot of entrepreneurs don't have the courage to talk about this, that a substantial number of us who go on and found a second or third business, a big part of the driver for founding the second or third business isn't just that we identify an opportunity. It's also that we need something to hold on to, right? It's like, the whole monkey bar thing, like a monkey grabs a thing and then as it swings, and only when it grabs the other one, then it lets go, right? Like we need the next thing to hold on to, because if you are not, the founder of that business, if you're not being profiled on Forbes anymore, if you're not invited to speak at that conference, if your articles are not being published on the opinion papers anymore, like, who are you now, right? You're just a person. And actually that a big part of what drives us, the struggle for building a business, forms a part of our identity, gives you a sense of purpose, that like, I've got to fight this battle and I've got to win and I've got to build market share and I've got to inspire a team and I've got to raise capital, right? Like, we think of these things as like a nuisance, but actually it really gives you a deep sense of purpose. So I love that you kind of, spoke about that and kind of went through that. What I've experienced over time, though, is a lot of entrepreneurs, when they go through that, also develop toxic habits. I'll tell you, one particular guy I know, he had a very successful exit. He's based out in the Valley. He had a very successful exit, and then he'd always been very skinny growing up. Like, in fact, the stories he would tell me, right, is he's Korean. He'd always been very skinny growing up, and the stories he would tell me is like people would be like bullying him when he was younger, because he was the small petite kid. And so after he had his exit, he was like, whereas most people went and bought certain things, he plowed himself into trying to be Hulk. Like, he picked up every single sport you could do. So he did jiu-jitsu. Then he went from jiu-jitsu to Brazil. And so the reason I know this is because I'd been doing martial arts for most of my life. And I remember when he was like, "Oh, I'm at the dojo." I was like, "Dojo? Is that?" And I remember him telling me this. I was like, "Is that code for like a hackathon?" Like, because he was always the hacker guy, sitting there writing Python scripts, right? I was like, "What are you doing?" Like, "No, I'm at the dojo." And then he started sending me these pictures of him wearing like his gi. And then he went from jiu-jitsu to then Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Then he did MMA, and then he got into weights, and then he got into gear. Like he was seriously juicing, serious. And I was like, dude, what are you doing? It took a while for me to sitting down with him, going, oh, he's just going through his trauma, right? And now he's going, I've made all this money. Now I need to prove to people that I'm not the kid I was before I made all the money. And so he was doing that thing, right? And listen, it's a tough period, man. It's a tough period. Did you experience anything like this, or after your traumatic experience, did you just like move on?
Yeah, if I did. So you've seen the movie Wolf of Wall Street, right?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, that was me.
Whoa.
That's how I lived. That's how it went on. Yeah, I was.
Whoa.
Yeah. So talk about toxic habits. Yeah, that's also, that's the reason why I'm a coach today. That what I'm coaching is because of that period. So I spent a decade. So let's just fast forward the story and then back forward it. So that's going to create some drama for the listener. So fast forward this story to 2023. I'm sitting alone in Spain, south of Spain, in a penthouse apartment, and I'm looking at my bank account, and it says $1,350. I'm like, what? And I'm looking at my investment account. It's also rock bottom. I'm like, what? I'm not waking up. So back to the story. So I'm checking out of Miinto, and I'm buying, the first rush of, we talked about this. This is a great thing. You mentioned that there's a difference from being free and being freed.
Amen.
I was being freed, and I went crazy. And the first thing I did, I went down to buy a Porsche, and I put on Drake, and I put on my cab, and I just drove 7 hours happily in this new car. Then, 6 months later, the motor lamp is blinking. I didn't know anything about cars. I go down to the car dealer. I said, this can't be happening. My ego was everywhere. Can't be happening. What is this new car you have there? There was a new Porsche. Okay, I'll buy that one. We'll switch the one in. So I just kept losing money on bad things. It was just bad habits. Then I went into so let me just say this. Stockholm women are extremely beautiful. Like Amen. They are, they are probably the Scandinavian versions of Brazilians.
I've been several times at a point where we're raising money from Swedish investors, so I know it.
Yeah. They just look like the ideal picture of a woman, from a blonde woman. So I'm getting swept into this, and I'm meeting people in this industry of, let's just say, I made money industry, and it wasn't the bright side of that industry. So I met all kinds of people, and I was invited into all kinds of parties, and I thought that was the coolest thing on the planet Earth. And it went on for 48 hours, and sometimes we took a private jet there, and there was just Wolf of Wall Street describes my lifestyle pretty well.
Wow.
And I destroyed myself completely. I was very functional, but I was the type at that time. I was building my third business, and I was so good at processing businesses up, because that's what I've been doing all my life. So I just quickly processed that business up. So I was no longer needed. I was just there to, follow up on people, which gave me the freedom. So one day I remember I went to London. This is just to give you, a quick snapshot of the destructive lifestyle I had. I went to London on a Wednesday, and I came back Thursday morning hammered, completely hammered, and go straight into the office. Nobody noticed. Nobody. I could just hold a mask. And I would probably smell of an old party, but they couldn't notice because I wasn't involved in the business. And that was how destructive I was. It's not something I'm proud of, but it's a part of my story. Amen. So I had 10 years of destroying myself, and that's how I spent my money.
That's crazy. You know what I love one of the things I love about you, Mike, is every time we talk, man, it's like you're so real. A lot of people wear the mask of who they want people to think they are. And one of the things I love about you, and it doesn't matter when we talk, it's like even when we're just sitting there having like breakfast or just like backstage, and you'll be telling me something, but you'll speak about it with such clarity and such honesty, which lets me know that you have processed it. Because a lot of people, the reason they don't talk about traumatic experiences or difficult times in their lives isn't because they're ashamed of it, although that's sometimes the case. It's often because they haven't admitted it to themselves. Like, this is actually what I went through. This is actually what happened, right? And so,
or they're still the same. Or they're still the same. So that's why
they
you can't talk about it.
And that's probably even worse, right? Like, can you imagine living in the lie? Like, oh man.
I did that, man, for 10 years. Yeah, I can imagine that. I can also tell you how it is. It's very difficult.
And I would imagine the hardest thing about it is, like, it's not that you're lying to the world, is that you have to convince yourself that the lie is real.
Yeah, and you have to face yourself in the mirror. But so for the first time in my life 2 years ago, Vusi, I looked myself in the mirror and I saw myself. That was painful.
Sure.
That was painful. I saw myself, and I've never really looked at myself.
So this period of your life kind of takes place. What were the big changes you made that led you to being the Mike that I met? Like, what were the, because let me say it this way. My experience has been that often when people face that, they shift shit. And I always say to people, spaces have energy, right? And so either they move office, or they move house, or they move country, or they, change the boyfriend or girlfriend, but something's got to change, right? Because, if you show up as the old you, even if you're trying to do a new thing, the old habits will take over, because the brain triggers. The brain goes, oh, I know what this is like. We wake up in the morning and have coffee. I know what comes next. Let me lay out some white powder on the table, because that's what comes next, right? So if you want to stop laying out the white powder on the table, I've never done it, but I imagine if you want to stop laying out the white powder on the table, you might want to stop having the coffee in the morning, because then it doesn't trigger your brain to go, what comes next is this. It's, James talks about it in his book, Atomic Habits, right? This idea that if you shift your environment and shift the spaces, then the habits will change. So what did you have to change so that might change?
Yeah, this is very well described. So I used to say, watch out for the four walls. So as soon as you step into a room, you put on a role you've had in that room for so many times, right? So same thing if you sit at your breakfast table. But so I met God. God, he spoke to me. He showed himself through pain. He woke me up so I could see myself. So it happened gradually. So I started to feel more regret, more shame, even though I was never a bad person. I was a yes man. I was probably just the funniest guy you will ever meet. And, I'll make everyone happy around me while I was making myself miserable. But, many times I woke up and I had this extreme anxiety and had this extreme shame, and I had this voice in my mind that just constantly told me what I should have done.
Oh my God.
And it just got louder and louder and louder until it screamed at me. So what really changed me was one event. And that was when my daughter was born. So at that time when my ex was pregnant, the mother to my daughter was pregnant, I stopped. There was not a problem. I stopped. But when I say I stopped, I was just forcing myself to stop because I still wanted it. So I wasn't stopping. I just stopped. And 3 months after she was born, me and my ex, we really had a toxic relationship, and we're the best friends today. So it's just to give you the outline of the story. We decided to separate, or she actually told me, let me just be honest, she told me to get the fuck out. And I went out.
Listen, here's the hard truth. Building a business is just not the same as scaling one. And I know everybody says that to you, but it really is true. It's precisely this reason for which we build School of Scale. It exists to help founders who are long past the idea stage, who are at execution stage, but who need help with the structure, the systems, and the tools to take their business to next. So it's not for, I'm starting out. It's like you're already running, but you need the help to take your business to next. One of the things we've seen in School of Scale is the number of family-run businesses where there's a transition from one generation to the next, who need the resources to make sure the next generation takes over and doesn't mess up the business. And so, in the School of Scale, we've got the founder track and the corporate track. The founder track is where entrepreneurs come themselves and we help them scale their businesses. The corporate track is where we work with large organizations who want to use our platform to make a difference in their own market. So we've launched in 3 different countries. For instance, they're using our platform, they're using our application, they're using our system so that they can help entrepreneurs uniquely in those ecosystems. One of the things I can tell you is this: scaling a business is science, right? It's not luck. We've spent close on 15 years getting good at the science, and we think we know what we're doing. On our platform, for instance, you can apply, you can manage the number of applications who've come through, you can grade them. Even mentors that you recruit, coaches that you recruit, meet on the platform, give advice on the platform. We've built it in such a way that you've got evaluation and monitoring. So all of the metric that you're measuring for each and every single one of the businesses that you're accelerating, all of them are on the platform and they're live. If you're the founder, we've built it in such a way that it's an intuitive, easy to use platform, so you don't spend your life living there, but the material that you need is on there for when you do need it. And the most important thing is we've built it in such a way that the community is a lot more important than what you learn on School of Scale. Because the truth of it is this: if there's one thing I have learned, it's that my success has been a function of the people I surround myself with and the community that I keep. And that's why we've built the School of Scale. You want to get a hold of us, email info@schoolofscale.co, or just go to the website, schoolofscale.co. I'll see you on the other side of this. Cheers.
And then I went on the bender, right? So this was the way I was handling my emotions. So I went on and I partied and, partied all night long, and I woke up and I didn't even wake up. And I had this anxiety. So to have this anxiety to shut up, I took a flight to Ibiza. And I continued 3 more days, and this is what happened. I stand and I look in my phone. I want to see what time it is, because typically around 7 a.m., that's where I really get anxious because I haven't gone to bed yet. And this time I'm not seeing the time. I'm seeing my daughter as a background picture.
Wow.
And while I'm looking at it and I'm looking myself in the mirror, for the first time in my life, I get scared. I feel I'm letting her down because I know she's not going to do what I tell her. She's going to do who I am. And she's going to search for a man who I was. Oh. And I just know that I am not the man that I admire, which I have to become. So that was my big tipping point. And since that day, I changed my life completely. I even changed my identity, not on paper. I'm still Mike Radoor, but my insights, my values, my life principles. I pray to God every morning. I thank him every day for every pain I get. And that's what changed me. That's what changed me.
That is wild. That's wild. And I love, man, the way you said that. You said, I realized that she would date the man I am. Yeah. There's a certain, as a father of 3, I think one of the most incredible things is when you realize that children are a mirror. And if you don't like, as they get older, you certainly realize that a big part of what you don't like, if you see it, is a reflection of what you were.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, yeah, man. And that's a difficult, controversial statement to make, but I believe it to be true for sure. I believe it to be true for sure. And
it's absolutely true. It's absolutely because who else could they be?
Who else could they be? They can only model, right? Because they can only model the behavior they observe. They can't model the behavior they're learning about, because it's cognitive if they're learning about it. But if they observe it, it's lived, it's real, right? So if you beat on their mom, that's the behavior they observe. When mom and dad are arguing, they raise their voices and they throw things at each other, they learn that that's how you argue.
I read a lot of books, but I didn't study them. So there's a difference from reading and studying. But I came across books and I understood in that moment I'm standing in the mirror. It just came to me, that idea. I don't know where it came from. I just got that idea. But I know for a fact that self-sabotaging, at that time, I knew for a fact that self-sabotaging behavior is you seeking towards the familiar. And the familiar is what you observed in your childhood. So which means that you can go out and you can want to have a great relationship, but you're going to seek the toxic ones because that's familiar with you. That's what you grew up in. You can go out and want to make a lot of money, but you're going to find a way to tear it apart because that's what you grew up in. So you have a thermostat that is set to where you grew up. And I realized that in that moment. And that's where I'm not going to give her that curse. I'm going to give her a blessing of me changing now everything. So when she grows up, the familiarity she's seeking towards is pure truth, is pure principle and discipline and love. That's what I wanted her to seek towards.
Download that for me, man, because this is actually a big part of what I wanted us to chat about. You've been working as a coach now. You're coaching entrepreneurs and executives, and you've got a system and a process and a methodology that works. That's the first thing. And it's science-backed. That's the second thing. But the third thing about it, which I thought was interesting, is, you're publishing a book, which your book will be available, talking about the principles you teach. But download this for me about the familiarity of where we come from. Maybe let me say, when you said it to me, one of the things I often say to people is the thing you run away from, you end up running towards. That's why it's really important to deal with your traumas, right? Because if you're running away from poverty, you, in doing everything you can not to be poor, you end up doing things that make you poor. It's a funny thing, but it's like, you ever seen a dog chasing its tail, right? It never catches it. It just like spins around and around and around until the dog realizes the tail is only moving because the dog is moving. So the dog's going to go, hold on. If I stop, it's my tail. Like, what am I doing here, right? So it's a crazy thing about human beings, but it's like there is a gravitational force of an attraction to the things you are running away from, that the further you run away from them, the more they pull you towards them, right? Before we talk about some of the other principles you work through and you coach your clients through, talk to me about this particular principle. Like, how have you seen that make itself manifest in the lives of how people live?
Yeah, I can use myself as an example. So here I am, point in my life where I was at this stage. I had $1,250 on my account, and I took a lot of consultancy jobs, and I built that up. It wasn't that I wanted it, but I built it up to have enough money not to worry about if I order sushi or if I, But when you have $1,350 in your account, you cannot just order sushi. It's like 70 euro, it goes off. But here I am, and I'm sitting there, and I have enough money to not worry about my food anymore, which I wasn't used to do that. And I'm ordering sushi. And suddenly, after I've been sitting there for 10 minutes choosing what I want on this ordering app, I get this anxious feeling. And at this time, I'm very aware, because that was the period where I really worked with myself, as you said, facing myself. And I'm like, why am I worried for ordering sushi?
So good.
I think the amount was 85 euros. And I just go straight back to when I was a kid. I could see how my dad was extremely careful with money. He was tiptoeing every coin, and that made me anxious of his energy was in me. And that was what I was seeking right there. So then I started to think, wow, that's my thermostat. And then I was thinking, oh, why have I then been spending because if my dad would have won in lottery, he would have done the exact same thing. He would be spending like the money would be there forever. I'm pretty sure he would do that. So that's an example. So I was very afraid of money. Money was dangerous. And if money is dangerous, you're not abundant. You're in a lack. And you're constantly playing not to lose instead of playing to win.
Love it.
And if you play not to lose, you will have the greatest suffering in your life, because losing is mandatory on the path to wherever you want to go. You gotta lose. And that was one thing. So what I've also seen, that was one example. Another example, Vusi, is when you have, let's say a higher performing man, high level income man. He's great in his business. He's amazing. He knows how to do business, but his relationships tend to fall apart over and over again.
True story.
Right? You see that many times. The most men I work with, they have a big chunk of relationship issues, and they personally prefer to find women they can save. And that's a typical example of that. But why are their relations? Yeah.
Oh. Time out. Say that again. They find women they can save.
A lot of the men I'm working with, they want to have a relationship where they can feel of value if they can save the woman. So that's very destructive. That's very toxic, right? You don't want to, when you're a high ambitious man, you don't want to save another person. You want to have peace at house. You can help at home, you can contribute at home, but saving them, just one example. So what is the thermostat about? Let's say you grew up and in your house, you have your mom and your dad. And let's say that your mom and dad is very unstable, mentally unstable. And they have a lot of outbursts of, arguments. And then they have, a lot of makeup, like dad leaves for 3 days, but dad comes back and it's all good again. Dad leaves for 3 days, but dad comes back, it's all good again. You have that traumatic separation all the time. That is now your thermostat. That means you think love is breaking up, coming together, breaking up, coming together, breaking up. So as soon as things are too good in your relationship, you will find a reason to break up. That's it. So that was for example, I didn't understand why when I was 16 years old, I broke up with my girlfriend 10 times. And I loved it. I loved to come back together. It was the best feeling ever. And I hated to break up. It didn't feel good.
Because you constantly need the mountain to climb. So stability and predictability feels foreign to you because you're used to chaos all the time.
And chaos was my description of love.
That's so powerful because in the chaos is the fire, and you have learned that relationships and love is about fire all the time.
Yes.
Rather than peace.
Yes.
That's so good, bro. That is so good. I don't know if you understand, like there's somebody who's going to be watching this for whom this is a ministry. They will hear this and they will immediately see their relationship. They will see their partnership and they will realize that actually I'm in something toxic. And the worst kind of toxicity is not the one we suffer, but the one we suffer unaware. It's when you're not aware that you've normalized this thing. So you think, of course I'm a man, I should be rescuing a woman in my life, right? Whereas you might be operating in an environment that actually is based on just generations of trauma. And we're having a conversation about an experience that Mike would have observed or Vusi might have observed. And so we make it our new normal and our thermostat. But imagine growing up in a society where the people who raised you themselves were operating in a thermostat that they don't know where it comes from. So now you have generations of like normalized behaviors, which are toxic, right?
Right, and that's what happens.
And that's what happens. Now, the crazy thing is, because you grow up in it, you don't even know that it's toxic. You think it's normal. And then you think the untoxic thing is the toxic thing. So you just go, and then you hear people say, I couldn't be in a relationship like that. That would be so boring. Yeah. That's what it should be.
That's right. That's right.
Man,
and then and add to this one. Add to this one. So in my book, I'm writing a lot about the dopamine economy, the $1 trillion economy that is, dopamine promoting for us. Now, what will happen? So this is also why Solomon talks about that in the Proverbs. He talks about, that lust is the enemy of all men, and the desire. And he talks about the discipline is literally, that's the road to follow the wisdom words of God. So the dopamine economy is literally taking that power away from us. And if you are constantly, as a man, let's say you're constantly dopamine addicted, you're scrolling in your phone, you are watching Netflix, you are eating dopamine promoting foods, you are doing adrenaline kicking activities, even probably going onto a porn site, and you do that all the time, no matter what, your business, they will destroy your business because everything in your business will be seeming boring compared to that dopamine. Everything in your relationship will seem boring compared to that dopamine. So on top of that generational trauma, either you clean it up or you pass it on. And if it's been passed on to you, and on top of that you have dopamine warriors, you fucked, Vusi. It's very difficult.
Just download that for me. This dopamine economy. First, as you said it, I pictured it. Like, I immediately went to why. Let's just talk digital first, but we'll talk online before we go offline. But just online, everything we interact with is now based on gamification. Gamification is nothing more than a systematic process of injecting dopamine into your system, right? So, human beings are strange, right? But you look at your child playing Roblox and you go, waste of time playing Roblox. But then you get to work and the company has a sales dashboard and that dashboard is demonstrating who's scoring higher than who, and you're constantly chasing being number one, and you're not realizing you're actually playing exactly the same game that your child is playing on Roblox. You're just playing it in the real world. Then you open up your phone and you go on Instagram and you're looking for how many likes do I have and how many comments? Dopamine. Then you go on your Twitter and you're looking at what's trending and are people commenting? Dopamine. Then as you said it, I didn't realize, like, and by the way, on top of that, you're then ingesting dopamine stuff. So you're overloading your drinks with sugar, you're drinking energy drinks all the time, you're chowing on chocolates, and so your whole world starts to exist on these short bursts of dopamine. And you and I know, to build anything sustainable, you can't chase that. You need a disciplined, predictable, sustainable path to the next thing. And man, as you said it, that's why I knew we had to have this conversation. I know there's somebody watching this who is addicted to the dopamine now. So if I'm watching this and I'm addicted to the dopamine, what do I do?
If the first step is awareness, and it's just not what do I do, but it's what you don't do. So wisdom is more about what you shouldn't be doing. And what I did when I did my hard reset, and I had bigger problems than just a dopamine hit, to be honest. I decided to study wisdom. So I went very deep in biblical texts, and I went very deep in, I wanted to have different perspectives than in just one religious belief. So I went into Buddhism and Taoism, and I went into Stoicism, and they all said the same at some point. They crossed each other at many subjects. And one of them were discipline. Temperance is what the Stoics called it, but self-mastery, self-control. And what is self-control? Self-control is, so I believe if you want to experience, so here comes a more philosophical way of saying it. If you want to experience the full force of life, you have to use your human power, and your human power is you resisting the urge of the easy. If you can resist the urge of the easy, you will experience life as its highest. So what I did was I sat down. Imagine I wouldn't call myself a drug addict, but I was a weekend drug addict, and I was, a womanizer, and I was, alcoholist, and, I was everything. And I was also Netflixing and Burger Kinging it, and I was everything. I decided to sit still. I sat with it. I wanted to know what it was. So if you want to get rid of your dopamine addiction, everyone's like, you can't do a black and white, just switch it off. You can't do such a big dramatic move, but that's what you got to do. So I was sitting with it alone in the mountains in Spain. I did nothing. I just had a brick wall to watch. I didn't turn on my TV. I wanted to see all the abstinences I had. And you guys are so screwed if you don't do this, because you are really, really into dopamine. I'll give you guys an example, imaginary example. Vusi, what would you do? I don't know, you're a man of commitment and control. That's also why you have this success you have, and you can really discipline yourself for many weeks and years. And so I know that. But if you are now put in a position where we didn't have this conversation, and you are now, let's say you are in a house somewhere, summer house somewhere, and in that summer house there is a TV and there is a book of none of your interest. I know you were choosing the book because you're that guy, but you're a terrible example. But let's say
use the TV.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So TV has a bigger dopamine release, and it's a constant, and you can swip and swipe. Now let's imagine in this house there is a book and there is a brick wall.
I choose the book.
You choose the book. Now, let's imagine there's no book, there is a brick wall, and then there's outside.
Go outside.
There you go. So I figured that out. I figured out we can get so much dopamine from the world, the nature of the world, and not all these mechanisms and all these technologies. So I started to taking walks, and I started for the first time to actually smell the smell of flowers, smell the fresh rain that just dropped on a mountain hill. You know that smell? That's an amazing smell.
That's an incredible smell. I know the smell. Yeah.
Right? So my point is, so you have to sit with it. So what do? You literally sit with it, you do nothing, and you do that for a long enough time to you actually to understand what a natural dopamine release should be like.
You know, the hardest thing to do, we were discussing this in our household. So we've been weaning our kids off tech. I got to tell you, man, like we're going through a very interesting time, right? Because let me speak honestly now, right? And I think a lot of us parents in the modern day do this, where we co-parent our kids with iPads, right? So sure, you parent your child, but you actually co-parent, right? And the default parent for the child. So you're the parent insofar as making material decisions, like where does the child go to school, what do they eat, you know, those are the material decisions. But in their everyday lived experiences, you're actually the co-parent, because your child defaults to, you know, YouTube Kids before they play with you. They default to watching YouTube videos before they do with you. They default to playing on Roblox before they do with you. They default to going on the iPad before they do with you, right? And so you're competing with all of this technology, which is so well designed and so immersive that you can't compete with it. And so we made the decision, and we were like, all right, we're going to cut the kids' technology during the week. Mike,
How did that go?
you got pray for me, brother. Pray for me as we speak. Pray for me. Say, I need the Lord. I need the Lord, man. Shit. Yesterday, this is recently as yesterday. Yesterday, I was working from home because I had a few things I needed to get out. And sometimes when I need thinking space, because you know, when you're at the office, like, you know, at the office, people can walk to you and ask questions. I was like, there's some things that just need my time. So I did the first half of the day, I worked from home. And as soon as I finish working from home, I go and get ready and I come back downstairs. I'm in my home office and my youngest gets home. And he comes and he greets, gives me a hug, gives me a kiss, does his thing. I'm very affectionate with my kids, right? Like my oldest is 15. I'll still give him kisses if he would let me, but he won't. So he comes and he like gives me a kiss and whatever. And then he disappears. And I'm finishing setting up, get a few calls from the office, do the thing. About 30 minutes later, he walks back into my home office and he's crying. I go, what's the problem? He goes, nothing. I was like, well, you're crying. Something is definitely wrong. He goes, nothing. Then he walks away. So my youngest does this thing where he will let you know he's unhappy, but he won't let you know why. Like, he wants you to figure it out.
What a cliffhanger.
He's like, I ain't got the time for this, bro. Tell me what the beef is. He's like, no, nothing. Yeah, so he does this a few times, walks away, comes back, walks away, comes back. Eventually, I'm in the kitchen.
Who does he have that from?
Leave it alone. So anyway, so eventually, you know, I'm about to leave, but I needed to make something to eat quickly. So I'm in the kitchen and I'm like toasting some bread or whatever. And I said to him, let's make some bread. He's still upset, right? So now we're making bread and we're toasting bread. And so I said to him, what's wrong? And then he says, I'm not allowed to watch the TV during the week. And then I go, so what's wrong? Like, you're crying, what's wrong? And he goes, I want to watch the TV in my mind. And I got to tell you, man, in my mind, it was so easy to just go, just turn on the TV, man. Right?
Yes.
But my missus, to her credit, she held the line. She was like, we said no TV during the week. No TV during the week. And I got to tell you, you don't realize that you've actually run the risk of addicting your child to the TV. And you didn't do it intentionally. It's not like they sat there and I was like, okay, get addicted to the TV. Now, what actually happened was I was working and it just made sense for them to go watch the TV. Or I'm reading. It makes sense for them to just play on the iPad. But for me to draw him away from the TV and draw him away from the iPad, it means I now have the responsibility of filling his time with something else. That's what I thought. Then I watched this video of this Joe Frost. She's like an amazing, I follow her on IG. She follows me. She's incredible. I want to have her on the podcast at some point. She's this incredible nanny that works with parents, right? And then she said, the greatest gift you can give your child is the gift of boredom. She said, when your child is bored, that's when they create.
That's when they have to imagine stuff. So they take a brick and a brick becomes a car. They take a stick and it becomes a gun. But they can't do that if you're constantly stimulating them. You've just got to leave them to be bored and they'll find a way to stimulate themselves. And then she said, and by the way, that's how they develop the creative muscle. Like that, literally that part of the brain doesn't get developed if you don't put them in a space where they, to your point, are facing the wall and they have to imagine a world out of that wall, right?
Yes,
so I think for a lot of us who are parents now, who are in our working world, we're so quick to chase that dopamine that I don't even have to imagine it anymore. I can just go and watch it and I know exactly what it is, which means my imagination muscle is now severely diminished because I spend no time imagining it at all. I can't imagine how hard it is for you to work with your clients and get them to like decouple themselves from that addiction. Have you seen any clients who've actually been addicted to the dopamine and they've actually managed to wean themselves off?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's all about awareness and perspective, right? So everything we have in our life up until this day is based on the decisions we have taken or not taken, consciously or subconsciously. And the way we make decisions is because of perspectives. So, so I give them new perspectives. So in my program, it's a very well designed 6-step process where they also get books and curriculums. So they really get information so they can see it clearly. So, but what they do have is I see clearly how, when I say weak, I don't mean that you're a bad person or anything. I just mean that you're weak. You can't resist. So resisting temptation is why Cristiano Ronaldo is such a big football player. And anyone who comes to a top point is because they've been resisting the temptation for the easy and with some intelligence to that. But I see how they justify their weak decisions and somehow, and this is highly intelligent men, how they make their situation or their circumstances so unique that they can't do it.
That's true.
And I see it over and over, and that's why I decided to call them out. Like literally call them out. And it would be like, bro, stop being such a B.I.,
ECA.
And they get triggered. And I said, yeah, but look at yourself. You're telling me. So they have to have a guy like me who can call their bullshit for them to actually see it. That's how trapped we are in, of course, this world as it is designed. It's both pros and cons with this world, but you can't let it control you, man. And what you're saying with your kids, I totally agree with that, and I totally see what you mean, and I think it's a beautiful choice you did. For example, my daughter, the mother to my daughter, God bless her, she's the best mom there is. So my daughter is I was just there now, every Friday and Saturday I'm with her all the morning, and she's 1 year and 9 months, and she speaks English. Not fluently, but she speaks. And because we read a book called How to Multiply Your Baby's Intelligence. And I knew that, the formative years are very important for your development and your belief systems. So the mother has just been training her. She can do the alphabet, man. Like who can do that when they're 1 year and 8 months?
Yeah, that's crazy, bro.
Right? So that's because we don't give her iPad. We don't give her technology. We give her, let's build this, let's do this. What is this? Okay, what letter is this? So we are homeschooling her. And the funny part here? They love it just as much as the iPad. They just don't know. They don't know the iPad exists.
It's absolutely true, right? And I think, to your point, is about removing the if you remove the alternative, then what you're left with is what you're left with, and you have to play the hand you're dealt. So you have the 6-step process. Quickly run me through what those 6 steps are.
Okay, yeah. So for giving you an understanding of it, so I didn't know I was going through these 6 steps when I was doing my period. So I had to look back and what I did. So the first step is the wake up call. So that's what I did. I looked at the phone, I saw my daughter, and I woke up. I realized that, wow, I'm not the man that I admire. So the first step is for them to wake up. So I put in some exercises and some knowledge for them to understand, all their vices into a deep level. But also what I did, Vusi, I made a list of all the people that I've hurt, all the women that I've hurt. And I made a list and I wrote down what was the conclusion of the pain I gave to them and how was I responsible and how am I going to contact them? When am I going to contact them? So I'm making a list of amends. And so I had an ex-girlfriend, so I didn't speak with her for 7 years. I spoke with her 2 months ago, for example. That's the first time I got her on the call, and I apologize for everything. So that's the first step to make amends. Not to do the amends, make them, because you haven't changed yet. And then what is it that you have of destructive behavior? Let's call it self-sabotaging behavior. Step number 2 is they apply physical discipline, which means the first step is for you to get disciplined with yourself, is to gain control over something so tangible, which is waking up early. Wake up early, and straight out of bed, I tell them to go into a cold shower, like no warm shower, cold shower, or cold plunge if they can do that. Why is that? Because, I'm also a master in NLP, so I took a master in NLP education. I have different kinds of certificates, but I don't talk about it. But the first 20 minutes of your day, your brain is trying to remember who you are. That's what happens. The first 20 minutes of your day, your brain will try to remember who you are. So, a good example is that if you had a business deal in your world that didn't go your way, and it wasn't a big problem, but it wasn't, a small problem, the first 20 minutes, you don't remember it the first 5 minutes. You just figure out that you are actually a human being. Okay, I'm home. Here's my wife. Okay, am I tired? So it goes, it goes slowly. And then suddenly you'll be like, that's right. It's not right away. So the first 20 minutes, your brain will try to remember who you are. So I'm using something called break that pattern. Like cold shower will break any pattern of thinking. You'll just like, oh my God, this is cold. You can't think of anything else. You can't think of your business problems or your relationship problems. You just think this is cold. So it's a hard reset. And straight after that, in the physical discipline exercise, I tell them to study, and I've given them a list of 14 books in an order. So they spend 30 minutes, 35, maybe an hour to study, and then they go to the gym. And that's the step number 2 they implement. All right. So I give them a training. Yeah.
What's the third step?
It's the third step, and it goes, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. And the third step is
your compound. First step.
Yeah.
And then after 2 weeks, add a step. And then after 2 weeks, add a third step. I get it.
Yeah. So the reason why I've implemented this cold plunge is because I decided to change my life, and I wanted to just wake up and be fresh. And I started waking up 4 a.m. and I was destroyed. I was like, Jesus Christ, man, how can anyone wake up so early? So I said, how do I get fresh? I said, I'm going to buy a cold plunge. I'm going to get fresh. So I jumped into the cold plunge for 4 a.m. in 8 degrees, and that woke me up. I was fresh. But what happened later on was I realized, wow, man, I'm not thinking about my problems in my life the same way when I've had this cold. Wow. And then I dived straight into this, wisdom books. Wow. I just felt like I got a better start of the day. And I didn't realize at that point that I was actually rewiring my entire memory bank for that. Anyway, step number 3 is character shift. That's where I train them in choosing or designing themselves. Who do you want to be? Now we know who you don't want to be. And now I'm asking them to design who they want to be. And I'm giving them exercises on how to train that person. So it's a little like a manuscript. You just train that, and you go through some thinking exercise that makes you aware of things. And the 4th step is mental command, because, okay, Vusi, we're going through that process, and here you are. You're in a situation, let's say in the grocery shop, someone goes in front of you, the line, and you're getting pissed. Now, what is happening? Well, that's, response, stimulus, response. And that autopilot is your identity. So mental command, that step is for you to actually wake up in that autopilot and switch direction. So in all reality, it is what I call a conscience congruent life. Conscience congruent life, that is you know what to do, but then you quickly override it and do something else. So you wake up in the morning, it says you should meditate. I'm going to sleep longer. Or the first thought, you're going to eat healthy. I'm going to eat sausages. So you already know what. So I'm training them to listen to that voice. I call it voice of God. If you listen to that voice, Jordan B. Peterson is talking a lot about this as well. And they're getting exercises for that. And that is for them to, amplify the character shift and amplify their destructive behaviors, become extremely aware and change the behavior enough time for them that becomes the new behavior. And step number 5 is spiritual discipline. And what is that? Well, it all comes down to discipline, just discipline in what we know it from. But if you ask me, to really become very disciplined, it's an awareness journey. It's more an understanding than it is an autopilot. Discipline will never become a skill. It will always be a choice.
100%.
Discipline will never become a skill, always be a choice. So the step number 5, I give them some information from the South Mexican spiritual belief from the Toltecs. And it's some beautiful knowledge that talks about how you should look at your thoughts. And it's 4 ingredients is they're going to inject in their mind, which is, first thing is always be impeccable with your word. And, never make any assumptions, take nothing personal, and always do your best. Even when you take a shower, always do your best. And that is the spiritual discipline. And that will automatically, on top of the other steps, just make them extremely good at what they want to be good at.
So good.
Now, step number 6, that's the funny part, because you know what, Vusi? I discovered, and here's the conclusion, I discovered no matter how many new goals I put up, no matter how many new habits I want to implement, if I bring the same old Mike into it, it's going to be the same output.
Amen.
So I had to change. So the step number 6 is mission mode. I just teach them how to create goals, and I teach them a way to put up goals so you make the goals into habits. But at that time, they have the new identity with them into the goals. So the output will be different.
What I love about your process is that you end where most people start, right? Most people start at what is your goal? And the truth of it is that, and I've seen this happen with a lot of people, is they put the goals down, but even they don't believe that they can achieve those goals because they don't trust themselves. And there's nothing worse than the inability to trust you when you know that you have let you down so many times that even you don't believe the words you say, not only about others, but about yourself, right? And you say, well, I want to lose 10 kilograms, but you've not completed the past 3 diets that you were on. So even you don't think you're going to lose 10 kilograms, but your personal trainer says, what's your goal? You say, I want to lose 10 kilograms. So you write it down. And what I love about your process is you deal with the person before you deal with the destination. It's like, well, let's actually deal with you first.
So you're right. So I discovered something on this is self-discovery. And of course I dived into some books of wisdom, but I discovered, limiting beliefs. How do we create a limiting belief? This is really interesting. How is that created, or how is that entertained? Now here, look at this one. Every time there's something called the law of exposure. I think we spoke about this as well, but the podcast didn't hear it. The law of exposure is as soon as you've been exposed for a thought, an idea, you cannot be unexposed. It's there. Is in your mind.
Amen.
And the law of exposure, if you then get an idea, I need to lose weight, because you get that thought, you look yourself in the mirror and you're like, I need to lose weight. That thought comes into your mind. That's actually a promise to yourself. That is a promise. I need to lose weight. That's a promise to yourself. Now, if you don't act on that promise, you are going to break the trust with yourself, which is your confidence goes down. Your self-esteem then goes down. And if you do that over time, what happens? You're going to build a foundational belief that I am the person who doesn't follow through. On top of that, it's very difficult to build anything or believe anything, because if that is your belief, that's who you are, you're gonna have more limiting beliefs. But the cool thing is you can reverse that cycle. So what I'm actually teaching them in these 5 steps is to trust themselves. So when your confidence goes up, your self-esteem goes up, over a period of time, you will become delusional, because your foundational belief is, I am the guy who always shows up.
So you switch what you believe, and because what you believe is different, what you achieve then is a manifestation of what you believed.
Yeah, you go into that, you don't mind if you fail, because you always show up. So next time I'm going to learn.
That's good, man. That's good. So talk to me about what's next for you. So you're writing the book, you're publishing. When will the book be out on the shelves? When will people be able to get a copy?
Yeah, so it's already written. Now we are just in the finalizing period with the editor, and it's going to be out in January 2026. It's going to contain my Wolf of Wall Street lifestyle is going to be there in details, and also my way back and everything. And right now we're working really hard. I have a fantastic media lady, Camelia. She's working really hard to get me in on podcast and etc. in America. And I'm going to launch the book, and I'm going to build a coaching business and help millions of men.
This is amazing, brother. Well done. And lastly, for the people watching this, who want to join your coaching program, who want to find out more about your process, how do they reach you?
Yeah, I will first thank you, Vusi. I will definitely tell them just follow me on Instagram, because I do coach in a way that if you can't handle the truth, then I'm not the right mentor for you. So start by following me on Instagram and reach out there, and I'll be happy to speak with all of you.
All right. Mike, it's been an honor and a privilege, brother. And I'm looking forward to part 1. I think you and I need to do a part 2 of this when the book is out and some of the reviews start coming back. Are you keen on that?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'll send you a copy. I'd love to have your what do you call that? When you write in the book before it's out, what's it called?
A forward.
Not a forward. Oh, if I can get your forward, man.
A review.
No, I'm talking. Yeah, so a review. You read the book, and this is what you think about it. That would be great.
With greatest pleasure. Send me something, and I'm happy to do it.
Wow, I got that on tape, guys.
All right, my friend. Good to see you. By the way, where are you now? Are you in Dubai, or where are you?
Right now, I'm in Marbella. I'm here for the winter.
Where's Marbella?
Marbella is south of Spain. I'm sorry, south of Spain, Marbella. So you have Malaga, and then you have the south coast of Spain up until Morocco. So that's where I'm.
Incredible. All right. Enjoy it, my friend. It was good to connect. We'll chat soon.
Thank you, Vusi. Happy to be here, man.
Bro. Ciao.